Hello everyone. Please tell me, which city are you listening from? What time is it there? Is everything okay? Or does it feel like someone's watching you? It started with the baby monitor. Elias and Santa had moved into the old cottage at the edge of Pinehurst, a quiet village where fog clung to the trees like secrets, and every night sounded like a whisper. They were new parents to a sick girl, Era, who had just started sleeping in her crib alone. The first few days were normal, tired smiles, midnight bottles, the faint lullaby of wind scratching against windows. Then, one night, Elias heard something strange through the monitor. A soft rustling. He checked. Era was asleep. But then came the whisper, faint, distant. Not in any language he understood. He thought it was interference, but the monitor screen glitched. And for a second, just a second, he saw eyes, not Era's, wider, older, staring from the far end of the crib. He rushed in. Nothing. The room was cold, though too cold, and the smell of lavender had turned metallic. That was the first night. The next morning, Elias chalked it up to exhaustion, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. That evening, as he brushed his teeth, the mirror fogged slightly, even though the bathroom door was open, and there, behind his reflection, she stood. A pale woman, not moving, not blinking, just behind him, wearing white, her mouth slightly open as though about to speak. Elias spun around. Nothing. He looked back. His reflection was normal, but the chill stayed in his spine, like a warning carved in ice. Era started waking up screaming at 3:13 a.m. every night. Same time, no exceptions. She couldn't speak yet, but her eyes told a story. Of something dark. Of something unseen. Santa began hearing footsteps at night. Soft, slow, deliberate moving from the hallway to their room, but never visible. One night she whispered, "Did you hear that?" Elias didn't answer. He was awake, but frozen. "I can't move," he whispered. "Something's in the room." But when they turned on the light, nothing. Then came the dreams. Not nightmares. Replays. In his dreams, Elias would wake up in a different bed, in a different house. Each time the bed was old, the wallpaper was faded. He couldn't move, only stare at the cracked ceiling. And somewhere in the room, in every version of the dream, she was there, just standing, watching him sleep. Her eyes glowed faintly, but she never blinked. When he woke up, his hands were cold, as if they'd been holding something. His fingernails were dirty. He began to question if he'd actually woken up at all. Santa grew distant, not angry, just foggy, like she was slowly becoming someone else. She would stare at the corner of the living room, the one near the old portrait they found in the attic. A woman in white, smiling faintly, the plaque. "Read," she watched. The first night they'd moved in, they'd joked about how creepy the painting looked. They weren't laughing now. Elias blinked. His reflection didn't. It just stood there, watching him. Mouth curved upward in a smile he wasn't making. He dropped the toothbrush. Water dripped from the sink. Slow, rhythmic, like footsteps. He turned off the light. The reflection stayed on for just a second longer than it should have. They tried to leave. They packed bags, took Era, and drove. But every road out of the village twisted back toward the cottage. The signs changed mid-journey. GPS refused to work. and when they finally stopped the car to ask a man for directions, he looked at them and said, "She's chosen you. You can't leave until she's finished." They turned around. The man was gone. The baby monitor caught movement again. Not just movement, eyes. They stared directly at the camera this time. Not from the crib, but from above, inhumanly wide, with a shine that didn't belong to anything living. The eyes hovered mid-air, blinking slowly. Then a smile. A crooked, too-wide smile appeared beneath them, then static. When they ran to Era's room, she was standing alone, crying. The crib was rocking by itself. Sana began talking in her sleep. Foreign words, ancient syllables, and then, sometimes, Era repeated them, perfectly, word for word. A baby mimicking an ancient tongue. Elias began locking the doors at night. He placed salt across thresholds, lit candles, whispered prayers. It didn't help, because she was already inside. One night, Elias woke up. Not in his bed, not in his house, but in her house, the one from his dreams. The ceiling above him was cracked. The sheets smelled of earth. The portrait from the attic hung above the bed, and she stood at the foot of the bed, breathing, silent. "I closed my eyes," Elias whispered, "but I still see you." She didn't move. "I don't know who you are." She opened her mouth. No words, only the sound of wind, of leaves turning to ash. He blinked. The room was gone. He woke up screaming. Sana held him tightly, but her hands were cold, too. Cold. He looked at her. Her eyes were blank, wide, watching her smile. The same crooked, too wide one from the baby monitor. And then, he realized, that wasn't Sana. The real Sana was still asleep. Next to him, he was dreaming again. But not his dream, hers. He tried to wake himself, but he couldn't move. The portrait on the wall turned its head slowly. The woman in white stepped out of it, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. She leaned down over him. "I've always been watching," she whispered, "even before you were born." When Elias truly woke up this time, the house was dark, completely still. The monitor was off. Sana wasn't in bed. Era's crib was empty. He searched the entire house, but found only one thing. On the wall where the portrait used to hang was a mirror, and in it he saw himself, standing alone, holding Era, smiling, but his reflection didn't move, didn't blink, just stared back while his real arms were empty. And from the mirror he heard a whisper, "You closed your eyes, but you never woke up." The night began like any other. I brushed my teeth in front of the mirror, half asleep, the harsh white light buzzing softly above. As I rinsed my mouth, I noticed something off, not with my reflection, but with the background behind it. The hallway in the mirror was darker than it should have been, the shadows deeper. Then, for a single blink, I saw her, a figure pale, hair hanging like seaweed, standing behind me. I turned, nothing, chalking it up to fatigue. I switched off. The light climbed into bed and pulled the blanket over me. The blanket moved again on its own, gently, as if tucking me in. I froze. I told myself it was just my imagination. The heat, maybe, or a draft. I kept my eyes open for a while, until sleep pulled me under. But when I opened them again, this wasn't my room. It was the same size, but nothing else was right. The bed was different. taller, harder. The ceiling fan above spun slower, older, and the walls were gray, cracked. Faint floral wallpaper peeled off in curled corners. The air was heavy, the kind that weighs on your chest before you even move. I sat up. My heart pounded as I scanned the space. This wasn't my home. Someone else's photographs lined the dresser, sepia-toned, blurred faces, no eyes. I stumbled out of bed and walked to the hallway, which smelled of musty wood and damp carpet. A baby monitor crackled somewhere faintly, though I didn't have a baby. I followed the sound. The hallway led to a small nursery. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside was a crib, empty, but the monitor beside it, an old analog one, flickered. No baby, just static. And then eyes. 2 glowing dots. Just for a second. In the crib, on the monitor. I slammed the door shut. Back in the hallway, I ran. But every door opened to more unfamiliar rooms, dust-covered furniture, unreadable books on the shelves, windows that wouldn't open. I was trapped. Panic rising, I found a bathroom. I splashed water on my face and looked into the mirror. My reflection didn't blink. I did. I moved, but it just stood still. Eyes locked on me, expression blank. Then it smiled. I screamed and stumbled back, but the door slammed behind me. The lights flickered. In the mirror, the reflection slowly raised its hand and pointed at something behind me. I turned. The woman. The one I saw earlier. Pale, eyeless, close. I blacked out. I woke up again, in yet another room. Dim, cold, claustrophobic. I was lying on a bed much too soft, like it would swallow me whole. A voice whispered near my ear, but no one was there. I closed my eyes, and still saw her. It wasn't mine. That sentence repeated, over and over again in my head. A memory I didn't own, but it felt implanted. Then I heard breathing, not mine, from the closet. I stepped back, slowly, and the closet door creaked open, revealing an empty hanger, but the breathing remained. Suddenly, the baby monitor, now in this room, hissed again, and a voice came through. She's not asleep, she's pretending. I smashed the monitor. Darkness. Everything went black. When I came to, I was in my own bed, my real bed. The room was warm again, familiar. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. It was over a dream, but I didn't feel rested. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My reflection blinked in sync. Good, I sighed in relief and turned to grab my towel. But in the mirror, my reflection was still standing there, not blinking anymore, smiling again. Now, every night, something changes. Sometimes the blanket moves. Sometimes I hear her whisper behind the door. Sometimes the baby monitor, though I never bought one, crackles softly from under my bed, and at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night, I wake up in a different bed in a different house. And every time, I forget a little more about the real one. It began with something small, something I almost dismissed. I was lying in bed one night, curled on my left side as I always did. The window beside me was cracked open, letting in the soft hum of crickets and the occasional sigh of the wind. My apartment was quiet, too quiet. I didn't notice the whisper at first. It wasn't loud or distinct, just a sensation, like someone exhaled near my ear. I turned over, irritated. Nothing. I lived alone, The next night it happened again. But this time, I heard it more clearly. Turn over. A whisper, so faint I thought it came from inside my own head. Still, I obeyed. I flipped to my right side, heart beating a little faster than usual. Silence. I stared at the wall until sleep took me. By the third night, it became routine. As soon as I lay on my left side, the voice would return. Please don't. She's waiting when you do. I started telling myself it was stress. I hadn't been sleeping well. Work was brutal. My apartment was old, creaky. Maybe I was hearing plumbing noises, or my own heartbeat. I tried sleeping pills. They helped me pass out. But I always woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. And every time I did, I was on my left side, every single time. The whisper was never angry, never violent, just begging, pleading. Don't let her in again. One morning, I noticed scratches on my neck. 3 lines, thin and red, just under my left ear. I hadn't scratched myself. My nails were trimmed. There was no blood on the pillow. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror and muttered, "This is getting insane." That night, I resolved to ignore it. I lay on my left side, defiantly pulling the blanket over my shoulder. Nothing happened for the first few minutes. No whisper, no sound. Then the air shifted. It was as if the room got denser, thicker, like breathing underwater. I opened my eyes. The room was the same, but the shadows were deeper, more aware. And then I felt her, not saw, not heard, felt. She was lying behind me, pressed against my back, her breath cool against my neck. A hand rested lightly on my ribs. No weight, just presence. I didn't move. Couldn't. My skin prickled. A low hum buzzed at the base of my skull. Then a whisper. You let me in again. I screamed and rolled out of bed, crashing to the floor. My lamp flickered and shattered. I crawled backward, panting, staring at the empty mattress. It looked untouched. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Over the next few days, everything got worse. My reflection in the mirror started lagging, not just for a second, long enough that I'd turn away and still see myself facing forward. My phone would ring once at 3:17 a.m. every night and display no caller ID. When I answered, no sound, just static. And then a breath. Not mine. I called in sick from work. I was scared to leave the apartment, but even more terrified to stay. The presence followed me not physically, but mentally. It lingered in corners, reflected faintly in TV screens, windows, anything with a surface. One night, I set up a camera, just to prove I wasn't insane. I aimed it at my bed and lay down on my left side. I waited, and like always, the whisper came. She's closer now. My eyes snapped open. The camera was recording. The red light blinked steadily. Then it turned off. The battery was full. Sat up and saw her. In the mirror across the room. Not in the bed. Not in the room. Just the mirror. Standing behind me barefoot, soaked. Her long black hair clung to her face. She didn't move, didn't blink. But her eyes, God, her eyes, they knew me. I turned around, nothing. I turned back to the mirror, still there. She raised one hand, slowly pointed to the bed. I ran. I stayed in a hotel that night, trembling under fluorescent lights. No mirrors, no windows. I didn't sleep, but I didn't hear her either. I thought I escaped. until I woke up the next morning in my own apartment, in my own bed, lying on my left side, and her whisper, closer than ever, said, "It's not your bed anymore." It was just another Thursday night when I went to sleep. Same bed, same pajamas, same light blinking from the charger on my nightstand. I remember pulling the blanket up to my chin, scrolling my phone until my eyelids grew heavy, and letting myself drift off. But when I opened my eyes, everything had changed. The ceiling above me was wooden. Old wood, faded gray, with cracks and black stains like soot. I sat up, confused. The blanket was different truffer, heavy. The smell in the room was the first thing that really disturbed me. It was damp, like mildew and time, like things that had been forgotten. I was in someone else's bed, in someone else's room. I froze. Maybe I had been sleepwalking. Maybe this was a dream, but everything felt too real. The mattress under me creaked as I shifted. My heart thudded harder with every second. I stood up, dizzy and cold, and looked around. The room had a narrow window. No glass, just wooden shutters slightly open, letting in a draft of air that smelled like wet earth. There were no electronics, no bulb, no switch, just a tall mirror in the corner, and a closed wooden door. "Hello," I called. Silence. I opened the door slowly. The hallway was long, lined with pale wallpaper stained yellow. No photos, no light, just that same silence, thick like syrup. I walked through carefully, bare feet pressing against cold wooden floorboards. Every step echoed too loudly. Down the hall, I found a staircase. I took it down, whispering, "This is a dream. It has to be." At the bottom was a living room, but it was frozen in time. An old radio on a table, a torn floral couch, a fireplace filled with ash, and again, that smell. It never left. It clung to me. Then I saw it. A photograph on the fireplace mantel. It was me, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. And a boy, smiling. All three of us, like a family portrait. I picked it up with shaking hands. My face was exactly the same stubble, same hairstyle. But I had no memory of this photo or these people. I turned the photo around. Written in neat, black ink were the words, "Our first winter together, 1954. No, no, no. That couldn't be possible." My stomach dropped. I ran to the nearest window and tried to look out, but all I could see were trees. Forest, dense, dark, endless. I grabbed the front door handle and yanked it open, only to find another hallway. Not outside, not a porch, a hallway. The same hallway I had just walked down, but now, longer. It shouldn't have been there. I backed away slowly and slammed the door shut. The mirror upstairs was fogged over when I returned, but I hadn't taken a shower. I hadn't even breathed near it. Then writing appeared, in the fog. "Stay where you belong," I screamed. I turned to run, but there was no door behind me anymore, just wall. I was trapped. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the mirror. At 3 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, soft, barefoot. They stopped just outside the room. The handle turned, but the door didn't open. Instead, something knocked. 1, 2, 3 times, and then the voice, a child's voice. "Daddy, why are you being so quiet?" My throat tightened. I had no children. I didn't answer. The voice came again, this time sadder. You promised you wouldn't leave again. I whispered, I don't know you. The voice turned sharp. You're home now. I stepped away from the door, and the room grew cold. The window creaked open by itself, and the mirror cleared. In its reflection, I saw my bed, and someone was lying in it. Me, but not moving, not blinking, eyes wide open, lifeless. I turned to the real bed. It was empty. I looked back at the mirror. The reflection was still there, unmoving. And then it smiled. Slowly, deliberately. I backed away, pressing into the corner of the room. The door swung open on its own. A woman stood there now, the one from the photo. Pale, beautiful, cold. She whispered, You always wake up too early. But soon you'll forget. She raised her hand, and everything went dark. Now I wake up here every day, in this house, in this bed. The mirror never shows me, just him, the version of me who stayed. The photo on the mantle is getting older, but I am not. No one comes. No one hears me scream. And the worst part, each night I remember less of my old life, and more of this one. One day soon, I won't remember I ever lived anywhere else, and I will finally stay. It started with footsteps. Soft, slow, measured steps across the old wooden floor. At first I thought it was just the house shifting, or the wind pushing against the window panes. You tell yourself anything to sleep at night. But when I started waking up in different rooms than the one I went to sleep in, I knew something wasn't right. My name is Adam. I live alone. I've always lived alone. No pets, no roommates. Just me and my thoughts in an old 2-bedroom house on the edge of the forest. I never had a history of sleepwalking. Not as a child. Not once in my adult life. Until 2 weeks ago. The first time I woke up on the living room floor. My arms were crossed tightly over my chest, and there were muddy footprints leading in a circle around me. My own size, but I'd gone to sleep with clean feet and locked doors. I chalked it up to stress. The second time, I woke up in the hallway, facing the front door. My hand was resting on the lock, and scrawled across the door in shaky red ink were the words, "Let her in." I stood there for a long time, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't write that. I couldn't have. I didn't even own a red marker. I started setting up cameras after that. Not security cameras. I didn't want to feel like a paranoid maniac, just my phone propped up on the dresser, recording each night. The footage was terrifying. At 3:12 a.m., I would sit up in bed, still asleep, eyes closed. My body would rise slowly, jerkily, and walk to the wall. Then, I would trace something into the plaster with my finger. Every night, a word, a symbol, a spiral. Then I would go to the door, whisper something I couldn't quite hear on the recording, and press my ear against the keyhole as if listening to something on the other side. The next morning, the door would have new scratches around the lock. I showed the footage to a friend. He told me it looked like I was in some sort of trance, that I might be suffering from a dissociative disorder or sleep paralysis. I didn't tell him about the whispers I started hearing during the day. The faint sound of someone calling my name from empty rooms. I didn't tell him about the cold breath on my neck when I brushed my teeth. or the woman I saw standing just out of frame in the bathroom mirror, only for a blink and gone again. Things escalated quickly. One night, I watched myself sit at the dining table. I picked up a pen and began writing furiously on a piece of paper, over and over again, "Let her in, let her in, let her in." The next night, I stood in front of the hallway mirror and carved the same words into the glass with a kitchen knife. My reflection smiled while doing it. But in the footage, in that exact moment, my eyes were open. I wasn't asleep anymore. I don't know when I stopped sleepwalking and started changing. I began to remember pieces of the dreams. Or maybe they weren't dreams at all. A room, white and wet, with dripping walls and a single chair. A woman in the corner, whispering without moving her lips. Her face hidden behind long, wet hair. Her hands too long. Her neck too still. She never moved, but every time I blinked, she was closer. The house itself changed to there were knocks at the door. Always at 3:12 a.m. Never loud. Always soft, deliberate, almost polite. I stopped checking. I knew what they were. One night, I barricaded the front door with furniture. Moved the couch, the shelf, the table. I even nailed the window shut. Then I sprinkled salt under every door, every windowsill, every crack. I went to sleep with headphones in, playing static. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., my eyes opened, my body sat up, and I pulled the headphones out, and I heard her. "You're ready now," I whispered. "I'm not." But my mouth said, "Let her in." And my body walked to the door. I couldn't stop it. Inside my own mind, I was screaming, fighting, clawing. But it wasn't my body anymore. I moved the furniture. I unlocked the door. I opened it, and no one was there, except the cold. A deep, seeping cold that poured into the house like smoke. For a few nights, nothing happened. I hoped it was over, that I'd broken the pattern. But then the writing changed. I woke up one morning to find a new message scrawled across the wall above my bed. "She's inside now." That same day, the hallway smelled like rotting pond water. My phone stopped working. My reflection started looking delayed again, sometimes blinking late, sometimes smiling while I stood still. I don't know how long it's been. Time feels slippery now. Sometimes I hear footsteps upstairs, even though I live in a one-floor house. Sometimes I see hands reach out from the dark corners of the room, curling around the edges of my vision. And sometimes, like just now, I catch myself staring at the door for no reason. She's not knocking anymore. She doesn't have to. She's in the walls. She's in the mirrors. She's in me. And tonight, my sleepwalking self didn't write "Let her in." Tonight, I wrote something else. Let her out. But I don't think I can. I think it's too late. It started with the mirror. Ion had just moved into the new apartment, a quiet, affordable third-floor flat on the edge of a fog-covered town named Elmbrook. He liked how silent it was, how untouched the walls seemed, and how the bathroom had a large mirror that stretched across the sink. It was old but charming, the kind of mirror you'd find in a Victorian manor. He unpacked in silence. No music, no noise. Just the dull sounds of cardboard, rustling fabric, and the occasional creak of the hallway beyond his front door. It was perfect for someone like him, quiet, introverted, tired of the city's constant hum. The first night was uneventful. He cooked, he read, he slept. But the second night was different. He was brushing his teeth, half asleep, standing in the cold tiled bathroom with the yellow light humming above. The tap ran gently, and steam still lingered faintly on the mirror from the warm shower he had taken earlier. That's when he saw her, in the reflection. A woman, pale, standing just behind him, not close enough to touch, just close enough to exist. She wasn't moving, she wasn't blurry. Her face was expressionless, her eyes were wide and hollow, and her hair fell wet against her shoulders. No sound, no breath, just there. He blinked, toothpaste dripping from his lip. Gone. He spun around, heart pounding in his throat. Nothing. Just his empty hallway. Silence. Ion chuckled nervously. Sleep deprivation, he whispered to himself. Classic. But he didn't finish brushing his teeth that night. The next morning, he convinced himself it had been a trick of the mirror, or perhaps some shape made by leftover steam and a tired imagination. But still, he avoided looking directly into it while shaving. That evening, he placed his phone on the bathroom shelf and hit record before brushing. Nothing happened. No woman. Just a man brushing his teeth and glancing sideways every few seconds like a child expecting a jump scare. He deleted the footage. By the end of the week, Ion had begun sleeping with the hallway light on. He didn't like passing the bathroom in the dark. The door always seemed slightly open, just enough to tempt a look inside. One night, after hearing the faintest shuffle while brushing, he slammed the bathroom door shut and jammed a chair beneath the knob. But the next morning, the door was open again. He began dreaming of the mirror. In his dreams, the woman was always standing there, in the exact same pose, feet together, arms loose, shoulders dripping with invisible water. Her skin was cold, blue-tinted, like she had drowned in silence. But in dreams, she would raise her hand and tap the mirror from inside. Once, twice, then tilt her head unnaturally, her mouth partying as if to say something. But he always woke up before she did. Always at 3:19 a.m., he spoke to the landlord. An old woman with cloudy eyes and a warm smile. When he mentioned the mirror, she stopped smiling. "Oh," she said softly. "The one in the bathroom. That's original to the building. Some tenants asked to remove it, but I always advise against it." "Why?" Ion asked. "Because it remembers," she replied. That night, he covered the mirror with a bedsheet and duct tape. He stared at it from the doorway, refusing to walk in. The next morning, the sheet was folded neatly on the bathroom floor. The mirror was spotless. Something was wrong. The days bled into each other. Ion began to feel cold, even in the sunlight. He felt watched. He'd glance out the window and catch movement in the reflection of the TV screen. He'd hear the tap dripping in the middle of the night when he was sure he'd shut it. His toothbrush would be wet before he used it. One night, he went to the kitchen for water and returned to find the bathroom light on. When he entered, the mirror was fogged with fresh condensation. In the glass, faint words had been written. "You see me now." He stumbled backward, fell, scrambled to the bedroom, and slammed the door. He didn't sleep that night. By the third week, he was exhausted, paranoid, and beginning to lose time. He'd find himself standing in front of the mirror with no memory of walking there. His dreams no longer ended with her tapping. "Now," she whispered, "let me show you." One night he woke up to running water. The bathroom, he crept forward with shaking hands, fingers brushing the cold wall as he walked. The light inside was off, but the sound of water grew louder, not dripping. He opened the door. The tub was empty. The tap was dry. But in the mirror, the tub was full of black water, and she was rising from it. Hair matted, dress floating, eyes fixed directly on his. This time, she didn't disappear. She stepped forward. The mirror and stood just behind his reflection. Ion turned. Empty room. He looked back at the mirror. Her hand was on his shoulder. He didn't feel it physically, but he felt the weight, the chill, the intention. That was the last night Ion slept in that apartment. He moved to a hotel, asked for a room with no mirror. He shaved with a small travel mirror, keeping it face down. When not in use, he didn't want to take chances. It worked for a while, until one night, he caught his reflection blinking when he didn't. And behind him, just behind him, a shape, wet still, watching. The mirror was cracked when he woke up the next morning. A single word etched across the fracture. Here? Ion doesn't sleep much now. He's moved twice. But no matter where he goes, the mirror finds him. It doesn't need to be the same one anymore. Any surface will do. Any reflection. Any time. So if you ever find yourself brushing your teeth in silence, and you see a pale woman behind you, standing too still, don't blink. Don't look away. And whatever you do, don't turn around. It started with the laughter. Not the kind that erupts from joy or comedy, but the kind that made your skin crawl. The kind that had too many breaths between giggles. Too many cracks in the voice. Like someone trying to mimic what laughter is supposed to sound like. And failing. Every night at exactly 11:47 p.m., that laughter came from room for B. Junaid lived in the flat opposite for B, a narrow corridor between them. His building was an old government apartment block on the edge of the city. Dull yellow walls, flickering. Lights and doors that closed just a little too slowly, as if something invisible resisted them. At first, Junaid thought the laughter was from a neighbor watching late-night TV, but it came every night. Same time, same rhythm. Then it stopped, abruptly, every single time. Dead silence at exactly 11:52, and every morning, at around 5:13 am, there'd be crying, muffled, broken sobs. Sometimes it sounded like a child, sometimes like an old man, but always from room for B. Nobody had seen who lived there. Junaid asked the building manager, a half-deaf old man named Ghani, who lives in 4B. The man blinked. No one. That flat's empty. Has been for 6 years. We keep it locked. That night, Junaid waited at his door, pretending to take out trash. 11:46. 11:47. There it was. That laughter. He stepped closer. It didn't sound like a recording. It echoed slightly, as if bouncing off walls inside the flat. He moved forward, pressing his ear to the door. The laughter stopped mid-breath. The silence that followed felt alive. He stepped back quickly. Behind him, his own door creaked open by itself. The next day, he tried to ignore it. Maybe he was overthinking. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe his mind was playing tricks. But then it happened. He fell asleep on the couch that night while watching a show. Just as he was drifting off, he laughed out loud. His body jerked slightly, like he'd been tickled in a dream. He didn't remember why he laughed, but when he woke up, he was crying. He sat upright, confused, breath shaky. His shirt was soaked with sweat and tears. His hands were trembling. He didn't remember dreaming. He didn't even remember feeling sad. This happened again and again, laughing as he drifted off, crying. When he woke up, his eyes had dark circles now. He couldn't sleep through the night. He began keeping all the lights on. He even tried sleeping at his friend's place, but the same thing happened. One night, desperate, he set up his phone camera to record himself while he slept. The next morning, he reviewed the footage. At 2:41 a.m., he saw it his own body began twitching. His mouth curled upward, slowly, painfully, into a smile. Then came the laugh, quiet at first, then loud. But his eyes were wide open, glazed, empty. Then something happened that made his blood freeze. The camera glitched for a second. Behind him, in the farthest corner of the room, a figure appeared, pale, barefoot, wearing what looked like hospital clothing. The face wasn't visible, just long black hair hanging over it. And then, she did something impossible. She leaned in closer, closer, closer to the camera lens, though her body never moved. The pixels warped around her face, and she whispered something inaudible. Then Junaid sat up and began to cry. He stared directly into the camera, but his face, it wasn't his. The skin around his mouth looked cracked. The area around his eyes had turned nearly black, and then he smiled again. The same fake, broken smile. The video ended. The next night, he didn't sleep at all. The night after that, he covered every mirror in his apartment. Then he heard the laughter again, this time not from room 4B, but from behind his own bathroom door. It echoed softly, then stopped. He didn't open the door. He sat on the floor, hands covering his ears, rocking. He visited a psychiatrist. He was told it was stress, trauma, hallucinations, but how do you explain footage? When he tried showing the video to the doctor, it was gone, corrupted, just static. He uploaded it to the cloud, backed it up on a USB, everything. But each time he played it again, the figure in the corner was gone. Just him, sleeping, laughing, crying. One evening, exhausted and desperate, Junaid knocked on the door of 4B. To his surprise, it opened. No lock, no resistance, just darkness. He stepped inside slowly. The apartment was cold, dusty, empty, except there was one thing in the middle of the room, a mattress, old, torn, and soaked with something dark. There were deep scratches in the wood floor around it as if someone had tried crawling away, and on the wall, scrawled in something reddish-brown, were words. "She comes when you laugh." His heart sank. From the corner of the room, the same figure appeared, head tilted, hair hanging, skin gray and dry like old paper. She didn't walk, she glided. Junaid ran, stumbling down the corridor, breath ragged, heart thundering. He left that building that night, but he still dreams of that room. Now he lives in a different part of the city. New apartment, new job, new number, but the laughter followed him. Every night, at exactly 11:47 p.m., he starts to laugh as he drifts off. And at 5:13 am, he wakes up crying. He sleeps with cameras on, salt lines around his bed, incense burning, prayers playing on loop. It doesn't matter, because she doesn't live in room for B, she lives in the laughter now, and wherever he goes, she does too. It started 6 weeks ago. I still remember the exact moment my life began to spiral into something unexplainable. And since then, I haven't turned the lights off, not even once. I had just moved into a new apartment. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, top floor of an old red brick building. It had charm. The kind people romanticize. Crooked floorboards, a buzzing fridge, and pipes that gurgled like they were alive. But it was cheap, and I liked the view of the streetlights from my window. At first, it was quiet, peaceful. I slept well, too well in fact, but on the 4th night, something shifted. That night, I dreamt of a woman standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't see her clearly. Her face was soft at the edges, unfocused, but I knew she was watching me. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, motionless, while a low humming sound filled the room, vibrating the walls like a broken cello string. I woke up covered in sweat, heart thudding so hard it echoed in my ears. But it wasn't just the dream that scared me, it was the smell. Lilacs. The room smelled like fresh lilacs. I don't keep flowers. The next few nights were uneventful. I convinced myself it was just a vivid nightmare. But I started noticing other things, subtle things. I'd turn the lights off before bed, only to find them on again when I woke up. My toothbrush would be wet, even though I hadn't used it yet. And then, one morning, I found long strands of hair on my pillow. Black, silky, not mine. I have short brown hair. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. Sleepwalking, maybe. Stress hallucinations. But then came the knocking. It was a soft knock. Not on the door, not on the windows, on the wall, specifically, from inside the wall behind my bed. It started at 2:33 a.m. 3 knocks, perfectly spaced, like a warning. I didn't sleep that night. I tried recording it. Set my phone to capture audio. Next morning, when I played it back, the file was corrupted. The next night, I used my old tape recorder. It worked until exactly 2:33 a.m., then static, like something didn't want to be recorded. I began leaving lights on, in the hallway. Then, in the bedroom, then the bathroom. But darkness always found a way. Sometimes a bulb would flicker, even brand new ones. Sometimes the shadows would stretch farther than they should, like they were reaching. 2 weeks in, I started hearing breathing. It would come from the kitchen, the hallway, the vents, always when I was still. Always just faint enough to make me question it. I tried inviting a friend over. Mark, I told him I wasn't feeling well and needed company. He agreed. That night I felt safe. For the first time in days. But then, at exactly 2:33 a.m., Mark sat up in bed and stared toward the closet. "What's wrong?" I whispered. His eyes were wide, his voice low. "There's someone in there." I turned on every light. Opened the closet. Empty. No one. Mark left that night and didn't return my calls after that. His last message was a voice note. Whatever that was, it wasn't human. Oh. Call me again. I stopped sleeping. I started keeping journals, mapping out the events, the time, the smells, the noises, And then came the worst night of them all. I had turned off all electronics, no cameras, no recordings. I was lying in bed, eyes open, trying not to blink. The hallway light flickered and went out. Then I heard footsteps, slow, wet, bare feet on wood, coming from the hallway. They stopped right outside my bedroom door. Then the doorknob turned, but it didn't open. Instead, I heard a whisper, a voice I didn't recognize. Female, gentle. I used to sleep here too. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The next morning, I checked with the landlord. Asked if someone had died in the apartment. He hesitated. We don't like to talk about it. But yes, a woman. Lived alone. Quiet type. She passed away in her sleep. The coroner said it was peaceful. But the neighbor downstairs, he claimed he heard knocking from her room the night she died. I asked if he knew her name. The landlord looked uncomfortable. Lily Garner. That night, the smell of lilacs returned, stronger than ever, and something changed. Now, when I sleep, I don't dream. I see her. She sits in the corner of the room, hair cascading down her pale face, hands folded in her lap. She doesn't blink. She doesn't move. But every time I open my eyes, she's closer. One night, I woke up and found her hand resting gently on my blanket, as if tucking me in. I screamed. She vanished. I've moved since then. Different city. Different job. New apartment. But every night, at 2:33 a.m., my lights flicker. The air fills with the scent of lilacs. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel the blanket being pulled over me, softly, gently, as if she followed me. As if I'm hers now. So I sleep with the lights on, not because I think it'll keep her away, but because I want to see her coming, if she ever decides to stop being gentle. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Old wood and damp curtains. The kind of smell that clings to forgotten places. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against a pale yellow light filtering in through dusty blinds. The ceiling above me had a strange pattern, a swirl of water stains that resembled a face, but I didn't recognize it. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my bed. The sheets were crisp, but unfamiliar. The mattress was too soft. I sat up, heart already racing. Room was cold, painted in a faded sea green, with wallpaper peeling at the corners. A single armchair sat in the corner, facing the bed. The clock on the wall ticked steadily to 7:03 a.m. Where was I? I stood up, my legs unsteady, and walked toward the window. The street outside was narrow, cobbled, shrouded in an early morning mist. Across the road stood a row of quiet, old houses, the kind you'd see in forgotten towns. I didn't know this place. I didn't remember getting here. My last memory was falling asleep in my own apartment after watching a documentary on deep sea creatures. Not this. This was something else. I reached for my phone. It wasn't on the side table. Neither was my wallet. No charger. No sign of my clothes. In the closet there were folded shirts and trousers. None of them mine. All too big. Faded. Some still had tags from the 1980s. My breath grew shaky. There was no mirror in the room. Just paintings. 4 of them. Each one with the same person. A woman with long black hair and hollow eyes, staring directly at the viewer. The paintings were slightly different in pose, but the face, always the same. As I looked at them, I felt it, a shift in the air, like being watched. I turned around sharply. Nothing, but something in me knew I wasn't alone. I stepped into the hallway. It creaked under my feet. The wallpaper here was floral, stained and torn. There was a smell like burnt coffee and something metallic. The kitchen downstairs looked untouched, retro, like a set from an old movie. No modern appliances. A rotary phone, a tiny black and white TV with a cracked screen, and on the kitchen table, a plate of eggs and toast. Still warm, still steaming. I hadn't made this. I hadn't eaten yet. My stomach twisted. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed. No reply. I opened the front door. It wouldn't budge. I turned the lock. Nothing. Tried the windows. Jammed. Every exit was sealed. I ran upstairs, back to the room. I opened every drawer, every cabinet, searching for answers. My heartbeat was erratic. This had to be a dream. A very vivid, terrifying dream. But then I saw it, in the drawer beside the bed. A Polaroid, me, sleeping in this same bed, taken from above. Behind me in the photo, a figure, barely visible. Just two glowing eyes in the shadows. I dropped the photo. I heard footsteps overhead. I hadn't been to the attic. I stared at the ceiling. They were slow. Bare feet. Deliberate step. 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 Then silence. I should have run, but I was frozen. Every part of me said, "Don't go up there." But curiosity can be stronger than fear. I climbed the attic ladder slowly. It opened into a small room, cobwebs in the corners, dust floating in the beams of light from the tiny window. Old furniture covered in sheets, but in the center of the room, a crib, inside it. Another Polaroid, this time of me, sitting in the attic, holding the same photo I had just found. I dropped it and backed away. My knees hit the crib. It didn't move. Then it did, just a small rock, like something had bumped it from inside, but it was empty. That night, I tried to stay awake. I dragged a chair to the hallway, facing the stairs, gripping a heavy candlestick I'd found. Every creak, every whisper of the wind, made me flinch. At 3:12 a.m., the clock stopped ticking. Not froze, stopped, and I heard it. A giggle, a child's giggle, from the room behind me. I didn't turn, I didn't breathe. Then the voice, close to my ear, "Go back to bed." I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up again. Same bed, same room, same morning, except the clock now read 7:02 a.m., 1 minute earlier than yesterday. The eggs on the table were scrambled this time, and the Polaroid, now there, were two. One from yesterday, one from last night. Same me, same bed. But in the second photo, I wasn't asleep. I was looking straight into the lens. Mouth open, screaming. I tried smashing the window with a chair. Nothing. I tried burning the photos. They wouldn't catch. I tried shouting into the night. No answer, only silence. And then, that night, I saw her, standing at the foot of my bed, hair long, face pale, eyes hollow, not angry, not sad, just there watching. I closed my eyes, but I could still see her. In the dark, in my mind, like she had burned into the back of my eyes. The next morning, I woke up. Same bed, same room. But the clock now reads 7:01 a.m. 1 minute earlier again. and there were 3 Polaroids, each one closer, each one more vivid. And the last one, she wasn't behind me anymore, she was next to me, lying in the bed, smiling. And now I'm scared to sleep, because every night I wake up here, and every morning, time rewinds 1 minute earlier, until I'm awake forever, until she never has to wait, because she's already here, waiting, watching. And when the clock strikes 6 to 66, she climb in the bed for real. The first thing I noticed was the ceiling. It wasn't mine. It was higher, cracked, with faint water stains blooming like rot on old paper. A ceiling fan swung slowly above me, one blade slightly bent, squeaking softly with every rotation. I blinked several times, trying to reorient myself. I wasn't dreaming. This wasn't sleep paralysis either. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my bed. The sheets were too thin. They smelled like damp wood and iron. The pillows were lumpy and old, like they hadn't been used in years. The mattress sagged in the middle, curling me toward its center. I sat up with a jolt, the bed springs crying out beneath me. Panic slithered in, my phone gone, no watch, no light, no windows in the room. Just an old oak door across from the bed, slightly ajar, breathing darkness. I called out, "Hello." No answer, just the slow fan above, and the hollow weight of silence. I stepped onto the floor. It was ice cold. The wooden planks groaned under my feet, as if protesting my presence. There were no pictures on the walls, no furniture except for a single armless chair in the corner. And then I saw it, a mirror, old, dusty oval, hanging slightly crooked on the far wall. My reflection stared back, pale, shaken, but something was off. My chest rose and fell, my eyes blinked, but the reflection didn't move. I backed away. I didn't remember how I got here. The last thing I recalled was falling asleep in my apartment. My warm bed, my bedside lamp, my cat Nori curled by my feet. I even remembered the show I was watching. Everything had been normal, until now. With a shaky hand, I pushed the door open. The hallway was narrow and strangely tilted, like the house itself was bending downward. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing long dark veins of something behind it, like roots, or worse, cracks that bled. I walked slowly, calling out. My voice sounded swallowed, as if the house had thick curtains around every wall, muffling everything inside. That's when I heard the first sound, soft, like crying. A woman's sob, far off, coming from somewhere below. I froze. There shouldn't be anyone else here. I followed the sound, step by step, my fingers brushing along the wall for balance. The stairs appeared suddenly at the end of the hallway, spiraling downward. They groaned with every footstep. Some of them soft, some echoing too long, like there was more space beneath than there should have been. At the bottom was another door, this one red and locked. The crying stopped the moment I touched the knob. Suddenly, behind me, I heard the floorboards creak, not from my feet. I turned. There was a woman at the top of the stairs. Long black hair, pale, wearing something tattered, like a nightgown soaked in shadows. I couldn't see her face, but she was watching, her head tilted unnaturally. I stepped back, my heart pounding, but when I blinked, she was gone. The hallway behind me was empty again. I rushed to another door and pushed it open. It led to a living room, or what used to be one. furniture draped in white sheets, a grandfather clock ticking in reverse. On one of the sheets, someone had drawn two eyes with charcoal wide, unblinking watching. Everywhere I went, I found more drawings of eyes, on the walls, under chairs, behind doors, all watching, some scratched out, some bleeding red. I stumbled into the kitchen. It was clean, oddly untouched compared to the rest of the house. A table stood in the middle, set for one. On the plate was a photograph. My photograph. Me sleeping, in my own bed. From last night, I dropped it. Suddenly, the lights flickered for the first time since I woke up. The bulbs hummed, then cracked. The house groaned like it was stretching from the inside. I ran back upstairs, back to the room, and I screamed. The bed was gone. In its place was a gaping hole, a black pit with no bottom. The fan above was spinning faster now, its bent blade tapping rhythmically. The mirror was cracked, and my reflection, now twisted, grinning, waved at me. Behind it I saw her, the woman again. This time her face was clear. It was mine, but wrong. The eyes were too wide, the mouth too long. Her smile stretched beyond reason, and then she whispered, "You woke up where you belong now." I screamed and ran out the door. But the hallway didn't lead to the stairs anymore. It led to another room. Same bed, same mirror. I turned. There were two beds now. One empty, one with someone lying in it. It was me asleep. I ran to the mirror, slammed my fists against it. Inside, my reflection was laughing. Then it climbed out. It stepped into the room, slowly, calmly. I backed away. It climbed into the empty bed and closed its eyes. The mirror cracked fully, and the door behind me disappeared. Now, I sleep in this house every night. But it's not sleep. It's watching. It's waiting. And at 3 a.m. every night, I wake up in a different bed, in a different house, somewhere else again. The door always open, the mirror always watching, the smile always waiting, because I never left that first house. And I don't think I ever will. I don't know how long it's been since I started waking up screaming at exactly 4:44 a.m. All I know is it wasn't always like this. I used to sleep soundly. I used to believe that nightmares were just dreams gone wrong. I don't believe that anymore. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to a bad dream. I remember the darkness, the feeling of falling, and then the choking panic that ripped me out of sleep. I shot up in bed, heart racing, lungs burning. When I looked at my phone, the time was 4:44 a.m. I didn't think much of it until it happened again the next night. Same thing. I'd jolt awake in terror, scream before I was fully conscious, and look at my phone. 4:44. By the fourth night, I started keeping track. I set a voice recorder beside my bed. I left the lights on. I even stayed awake until 3 o'clock just to make sure it wasn't something I was doing in my sleep. But the moment I drifted off, it was like something pulled me under, not into sleep, but into a place that pretends to be sleep. It's always the same sequence now. I open my eyes in the dream. I'm standing at the foot of my bed, looking down at myself. The room is pitch black, but I can still see everything. That's the worst part. There's no light, but perfect visibility, like the shadows have their own vision. My body lies there, completely still. And behind me, always behind me, I can hear breathing. Not human breathing. It's deep, slow, and wet. It sounds thick, like the lungs are too big for the body. I try to turn around, but I can't. I'm paralyzed in this ghost version of my room, forced to look at my own sleeping form while something stands just inches behind me, breathing. Then I feel the whisper, not in my ear, but inside my bones. It says the same thing every time. Don't move, or you'll wake up dead. That's when I scream. And every time, I wake up, choking on my voice. 4:44 a.m. I stopped setting alarms. They're pointless. Whatever this is, it doesn't need clocks. I went to a sleep therapist. I told him everything. He suggested stress, anxiety, even repressed trauma. He gave me sleeping pills. That night, I took 2, fell into unconsciousness, and still woke up at 4:44 a.m. screaming, even louder than usual. But this time, something changed. There were scratch marks on my ceiling, long jagged gouges in the plaster, as if something had been clinging there, watching. I live alone, no pets, no rodents, and no explanation. I bought a camera and pointed it directly at my bed. What I saw in the footage, I can't explain. From 4:40 to 4:44, the footage glitches. Not your usual static, but bending like the lens was warping inward, like the whole room was being sucked into itself. Then, at 4:43, my body began to twitch. First a finger, then my foot. Then my entire body lifted as if something underneath the bed was pulling me up by the spine. And then, at 4:44, I screamed. My body snapped upright like a puppet. The moment my eyes opened, everything stopped. The camera cut off, and I sat there, staring at my phone. I didn't sleep the next night, or the next, but no matter how long I resisted, the moment I blinked too long, the dream took me, and I woke up at 4:44 again. Now, things are leaking into the real world. I see shadows standing still in mirrors. My reflection sometimes blinks late. Lights flicker in rhythm to my breathing. My cat stares at corners and hisses without sound. One night, I covered all the mirrors, unplugged everything, surrounded my bed with saltiest salt. I was desperate, tanned, stayed up watching myself in a live feed. 4:44 a.m. hit, and nothing happened. I sighed with relief until I noticed the bed and the camera feed was empty. My body was gone. I jumped out of bed, stared at the screen. The room looked the same. The furniture, the light all correct, except I wasn't there. Then, slowly, something entered the frame. It looked like me, same clothes, same hair, same face, but it wasn't me, because it was staring straight at the camera, and smiling. I ran. I left the apartment that night and never went back. I stayed in hotels, motels, even slept in my car, but it followed me. The scream always comes. Always at 4:44 a.m. Now I don't even sleep anymore. I stay up with lights on, TV blaring, coffee by the gallon. But my body can't keep up. Last night, I passed out for just a few seconds. My head dropped, and I woke up screaming. 4:44 a.m. But I wasn't in my bed. I was outside, standing barefoot in the middle of a road. No memory of getting there. Number? Shoes? No phone. Just the sound of that voice echoing through my skull. Don't move, or you'll wake up dead. Tonight, I'm not sleeping. If I do, I don't think I'll wake up this time. And if I do, I might not wake up as me. because something is watching, and it's just waiting for 4:44 a.m. I woke up gasping. Sweat clung to my back like a second skin. The sheets were twisted, the pillow soaked, and my heartbeat was racing as though I'd been running for hours. The room was still, except for the ticking of the old wall clock. 3:47 am. My mouth was dry. I sat up, disoriented. That's when I noticed it. This wasn't my room. The walls were a pale yellow, cracked near the ceiling. The furniture was old, unfamiliar. A wardrobe stood tall and narrow in the corner, and the bed I was on, wooden and creaky, wasn't mine. I had no idea how I got here. My phone wasn't on the nightstand. There was no nightstand. No pictures, no windows, just a single door. I stumbled out of bed, dizzy. This had to be a dream. I told myself that over and over as I walked to the door and opened it slowly. Behind it was a hallway, long, narrow, dim. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air felt thick, like trying to breathe through damp cloth. The floor creaked beneath every step, groaning as if protesting my presence. "Hello," I called, but my voice sounded wrong to quiet, as though the air swallowed it whole. I walked, counting. The doors, 1, 2, 3, each identical. Brass knobs, no signs, no sounds. I tried the first one, locked the second, locked the third, opened. Inside was another room, nearly identical to the one I woke up in, but this one had something mine didn't. A mirror. Large, old-fashioned, ornate, standing against the far wall. I approached it slowly. My reflection stared back, but it was lagging, like I moved a second before it followed. I blinked. It didn't. I stepped back, heart pounding. This wasn't a dream. No dream would stretch on this long, feel this real. I reached out to touch the mirror, and my reflection smiled. I didn't. It leaned forward, closer to the glass, as if trying to push through. I turned and ran, back into the hallway, slamming the door behind me. I sprinted past more doors, 7, 8, 9, till I reached a staircase. It spiraled down into darkness. I hesitated, but staying wasn't an option. I descended. The air grew colder with every step. The lights above flickered and went out one by one. I reached the bottom, stepping into a room filled with beds, dozens of them, all neatly made, all unoccupied, except one. There was someone lying under the sheets. I backed away, slowly, but the figure sat up. It was me. Same hair, same clothes, same terrified face. I screamed and turned, running back up the stairs, breath ragged, chest burning. But the hallway at the top wasn't the same. It curved now. The wallpaper was different. The doors were gone. Only one thing remained, the mirror. It stood in the center of the hallway, impossibly tall now, reaching the ceiling. The reflection inside it was no longer a mirror image, was a version of me, smiling eyes completely black. The lights burst out behind me, one by one, pop, 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 and then I woke up, in my room. My real room. Sunlight streaming through the window. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 7:12 a.m. A dream. Thank God, just a dream. I sighed, ran a hand through my hair, and got up. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. As I looked in the mirror, I froze. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. And behind me, in the mirror, the hallway was still there. and the mirror was opening. I woke up in a different bed, in a different house. That wasn't where I went to sleep. The mattress was stiff. The sheets were tucked military tight. The ceiling above me was textured, unfamiliar. A fan turned slowly, clicking at every rotation, like a broken metronome. I sat up, heart thudding, mouth dry. The room was old. Wallpaper with faded blue roses, dusty curtains, a wooden rocking chair beside a window that overlooked an overgrown garden. I'd never seen this place before. I had gone to bed in my apartment in the city. Small, cluttered, warm. My cat, Merlin, always curled beside me. But Merlin wasn't here. Neither was my phone, or my bag, or anything that belonged to me. Only silence. I stepped out of bed, barefoot on cold wooden floors. The house was dim, lit only by thin gray morning light that seeped in through the curtains. The hallway was narrow, lined with portraits. Dozens of them, all in black and white, all of the same woman. She had a plain face, pale skin, dark eyes, no smile. Her stare was heavy, not angry, just fixed. At the end of the hallway was a bathroom. I looked in the mirror and blinked, but my reflection didn't. My heart stopped. I blinked again, and the reflection followed, but not in sync. It was always a beat too late, like a bad video call. And when I turned away, just for a second, I could have sworn it smiled. The kitchen smelled like something was burning, but there was no fire. Just an old kettle on the stove, and a cracked baby monitor on the counter. It sparked faintly, then it turned on, by itself. Static at first, then a voice. Not a child, a whisper. "You came back." I dropped it, backed away. The static rose into a high-pitched hiss, before cutting out entirely. I tried the front door, locked. The windows wouldn't open. The back door led to a staircase that spiraled down into a basement. But I wasn't going there. I returned to the hallway. The portraits had changed. Now the woman's eyes were open wide. Her head tilted slightly, and in the last frame, her mouth was parted like she was about to scream. Something about her face was familiar, but I couldn't place it. In one room I found a crib empty. A wooden mobile above it turned slowly. The air smelled sweet, like old baby powder, but I felt watched. I turned on the baby monitor again. Eyes, two glowing eyes inside the crib, just floating there, watching me. But when I looked inside, it was empty again. I shut the door, back. In the main room, I found a cat, Merlin, but he didn't run to me. He was frozen, back arched, tail stiff, staring into the corner of the room. His ears were flat. He hissed, low and terrified, but didn't move. There was nothing in the corner, except a shadow. It wasn't cast by anything. It was just there. I whispered his name. He didn't blink. I touched his fur, and it was ice cold. I looked back up. The shadow was gone. But now the rocking chair was moving, rocking slowly, creaking with a rhythm that sounded almost like breathing. I closed my eyes. I still saw her, the woman from the portraits. Her pale face burned into the darkness of my mind, eyes wide, lips moving, whispering something. A name. I snapped my eyes open, gasping. But the whisper didn't stop. She was still speaking inside my head. I ran to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, stared into the mirror. This time, I didn't have a reflection. My hands were visible. My clothes, the sink behind me, but not my face, just empty space. I screamed. From the hallway, a floorboard creaked. And then, a voice, soft. Female, you left me here. I backed away. My knees hit the edge of the bathtub. Then I heard breathing. Right behind the door, I held my breath. A key slowly turned in the doorknob. Even though I hadn't locked it, it opened a crack. I ran. I didn't care anymore. I ran back through the hallway, down the stairs, through every room, screaming for help. For Merlin, for anyone. The house had no exit, no lights, no clocks, and outside the window was the same garden, no street, no neighbors, just trees, dense moving, even though there was no wind. I collapsed to the floor, my mind spinning. Then I heard a whisper, from the keyhole. She sees you. I crawled to the door, looked through the keyhole. A single eye looked back at me, bloodshot, wide, unblinking. I fell backward. Then silence, until the baby monitor turned on again. She's in your bed now. I turned. The bed in the center of the room had changed, no longer neatly made. There was a shape under the blanket, curled, breathing. I walked slowly toward it. My hands trembling, I pulled the blanket back. It was me, sleeping, eyes closed, but the face twisted in fear. I stepped away, shaking. My legs felt heavy, like I was sinking. The room darkened. I turned around, and she was there. The woman, not angry, just waiting. She raised one finger to her lips. Then everything went black. I woke up in a different bed, in a different house again, and again, and again. Each time slightly different. The portraits shifting. The hallway longer. The mirror darker. The woman always closer. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know who she is. I don't know who I am anymore. But I know this. When I close my eyes, I still see her. When I blink, she moves. And when I sleep, she gets closer. The keyhole's never empty. The baby monitor never silent. The bed never mine. And the house is still watching.